Thank you for downloading this Absolute Radio podcast. We have your free tickets to see Kings of Leon, Kasabian and Stereophonics at this year's Virgin Mobile V Festival. Enter now at absoluteradio.co.uk.
There's only a few occasions in history when something happens which is so powerful the whole world is drawn together to share in the raw emotion of the moment. 25 years ago, the entire planet felt compelled to help the millions of people ravaged by famine in Africa. You were probably one of them.
This was like an explosion of happiness. People just felt good in the proper sense. They felt they were doing good. They felt like good people doing a good thing. And they were absolutely right.
Bob would miss no opportunity to hammer his cause home, and good for him. What an amazing guy. Nobody else could have made it happen except Bob.
Live Aid worked. It was actually a historical event. It was a beautiful day.
It was the most charitable decade that we've probably ever had.
And it proved the power that music can have.
It was an incredible day. It's a legendary day in pop music. It's a bit like after Woodstock there was Live Aid, and that's been the two big events that people always talk about.
I just needed one brassy, bold son of a bitch to get it all together, and that was Bob.
Geldof has had a huge impact. He's inspired people because they know that he's like a man of the people, and that someone who really represents them can go out and do something.
I could tell you of people who, even if they were only granted one single day of life, would have thanked those who made Live Aid happen, i.e. the people who donated.
It took every massive artist on the planet to wake the world up and say, we're dying as mankind. We're only as strong as our weakest link.
This was a group of people led by Bob, showing the politicians, showing the aid agencies that the people can do it themselves.
It just reminded us of the reality of it all, and we did something about it. That was the great thing. We all did something about it.
If it wasn't for Band Aid and Live Aid, there'd be a lot less people walking about in Central Africa right now.
I'm Harvey Goldsmith, and I co-produced the whole Live Aid concerts with Bob Geldof. I guess the history of it was that the record came out and became a huge success, and Bob decided that he would like to have a concert, and he wanted to do it at Wembley Stadium. And he came round to the office and said, we're going to do this concert, I want you to do it with me, and I don't want to hear any more about it, let's get on with it. And this was about 10.5 weeks before the show was due to take place.
Bob Geldof has announced his biggest venture yet to raise money for the starving people of Ethiopia. His Band Aid, which raised £8 million for the food operation, is to become Live Aid. The biggest names in pop music, from Elton John to Bob Dylan, from Duran Duran to Wham, are to appear in 2 concerts in London and the United States on July the 13th. Both will be transmitted live by satellite and watched on television by millions of people around the world.
I said, what kind of artists can we get? And Bob said, everybody. I said, yeah, OK, like who? And he said, everybody. They're all going to do it. And he rattled off every act you'd ever heard of in your life. And I said, are you serious? And he said, yep, they're all going to do it. Of course, he lied through his back teeth because he hadn't actually talked to one single artist, but he just decided they were all going to do it.
To me, it is not a pop concert. To me, it's not a TV show. To me, it's simply a means of keeping people alive.
As it came down to the wire, more and more people committed themselves finally, and most of the English bands that we'd asked to go to America to fill up the bill had immediately agreed to do it, and British Airways were flying them all over free and all that.
Everybody talks to everybody. It's like the jungle drums get going. Are you doing it? I don't know. Are you doing it? I don't know. Is he doing it? I don't know. And then they'd all talk again, and then finally everybody thought it was a good idea, and the bill started to come together.
With just 23 hours to go, the countdown has begun for the world's biggest ever rockathon. The Live Aid concert to raise money for famine relief in Ethiopia looks set to break more than its own share of records.
For the first time in months, Bob Geldof can afford to relax. His dream of a global jukebox to raise millions for the starving of Africa is about to become a reality. A huge revolving stage has been built at one end of Wembley Stadium. Tomorrow morning, 70,000 pop fans will pour in.
I woke up thinking, what am I going to wear? And at the bottom of the bed were the jeans and the denim shirt and the denim jacket, and that was it, really. I just thought, spare me, don't even think about it, just put on yesterday's clothes, save yourself the bother. So I just stuck them on, and I didn't know really when to go. You know, I just thought, well, when am I supposed to, go up there? Sort of thing. So I just sort of noodled about. I had nothing to do for the first time since October 84, 6 months previously.
We'd gone on sale with a list of acts. I didn't know whether they were playing or they weren't playing. The show sold out in literally 3 seconds flat. It just caught the mood of the time, and of course at the back of it, besides the business side of it, the reality was that every day on TV, following this remarkable Michael Burke piece, you could see the pictures, and it was just complete horror. And here we are worrying about butter mountains and fruit mountains and where to chuck it.
I opened the door and I thought there'd be journalists there, but I don't remember there being journalists there. But I certainly heard all the windows were open because it was hot in the front doors on the street, and I heard all the radios and all the tellies, like in a movie, tuned to this thing.
And to get the best effect, you should position the speakers on either side of the television set a few feet away.
And 2 hours to Live Aid, they're great as they're this, they're that and the other, And I really started panicking, freaking out just, So I walked down the street to the car, and I remember people just leaning out the windows and saying, "Good luck, Bob," and that, which was cool. But quite literally, every single house had this one thing on.
It's 12 noon in London, 7 a.m. in Philadelphia, and around the world it's time for Live Aid. 16 hours of live music in aid of famine relief in Africa. Wembley welcomes their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales.
I had gone into the Royal Box, and I just remember the noise. The noise was exceptional, and it was also jammed. Now, in theory, I think the maximum you're allowed is 85,000, but the thing holds 100,000 when you ram them in, and this was to the gills. I saw Quo getting ready, and I thanked them very much for starting this thing off, because that had been a big issue. Who the hell do you get to start this? Just who?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Royal Salute.
I don't know whether someone suggested it to me or whether, I don't know, it was a great inspirational moment, of which I have few, but this may have been one. The idea of Quo starting it off. Now, Quo at the time were a major, major stadium rock act, but they always were to me the perfect cartoon of a rock band. If you could reduce it to its elements of hair, denim, Fender Telecasters, 3 chords, 12 bars, hooks, that was Quo. Brilliant,
To start the 16 hours of Live Aid, would you welcome Status Quo?
They walked out on stage as if it was a bar, and I think the immortal, "All right," was what they said to the planet.
Here's Sting.
I played fairly early on in the afternoon, and as the day progressed, the atmosphere got more and more intense. Everybody knew why they were there. The audience felt they were part of the event. And so there was this warm feeling of support and a sort of buoyancy and a feeling that we were trying to do something for the situation. Bob had been a very old friend of mine for a long time, and so he called me to do the big show. But, I didn't have a band at the time, so I thought, well, I'll just go on with the guitar and maybe Phil Collins will play the piano.
Phil Collins and Sting decided to perform together in Wembley. On a runway around 10 miles away, Concorde was waiting to take Phil to New York, and from there he took a helicopter to Philadelphia.
I was on tour with No Jacket Required in the States, and I'd started to hear word that there was this concert Bob was putting together. And I didn't think it was going to happen because it just seemed too cutting edge at the time from a technological point of view. But I got a phone call from Sting. He said, "You fancy doing something together?" So I said, "Yeah, great." Me and Sting rehearsed at my house for an afternoon, and then the following Saturday was the show, and I arrived at Wembley Stadium sometime, I guess, late morning. The show had already begun, and me and Sting did our thing, and then I waited around backstage to get the helicopter to Heathrow. All the baggage handlers were out on the tarmac, waving hello, goodbye. Got on Concorde and took off, and I didn't actually, when I said I'd do this Concorde thing, I didn't think I'd be the only one. I was told that there would be some other people that were going to be involved in both concerts. My original idea was that I wanted to play drums with somebody, and it seemed that all the acts in London were self-contained, and my friends Eric Clapton and Robert Plant were going to be playing in America. So my manager said you could actually do both. If you got on Concorde, you could land and still do the evening